us a little bit about these other regions. Please join us.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank you, Professor Wang. I am grateful to be back. I'm class of 1999 at Sloan, and 12 years later, it's really an honor for me to be able to interact with the rest of you. Thank you. And Ting here especially has been so supportive for all these efforts, so I want to give an express thank to him as well. I would like to take the next few minutes, take you on a journey to Vietnam. It's a journey that has been embarked by my family, started with my father 22 years ago, and my first trip to Vietnam was 20 years ago. So aside from CX Technologies, I do wear a number of other hats, and among which I'm probably the largest infrastructure investor in Vietnam. When we first went in '89, Vietnam had an unemployment rate of 40%. So the issue really was, what can we do to help? How can we assist national growth? So we looked at economic models in the region in Asia, and specifically from Taiwan, and we introduced the first export-oriented industrial free trade zone to Vietnam. And we set that up, and over the next 15 years, attracted 120 manufacturers to it, created 60,000 jobs, and more importantly, with everybody's help, probably earned 1/10 of the foreign exchange reserve for the State Bank of Vietnam. Then secondly, Vietnam had a 500 power outages a month situation back then. So lights would flicker because the grid wasn't very stable and wasn't suitable for industrial development. So what we actually did is we joined hands with our compatriots from mainland China, and then we put up a plant in Vietnam and hooked it onto the grid and partially helped stabilize the electricity grid in the country. But more importantly, we foresaw the rapid urbanization that would inevitably take place as any economy developed. So we then embarked on this journey, which is the building of the Phu My Hung New Urban Center in Ho Chi Minh City. So I think this is the right one. So we started here. In '93, we held a international competition, and then because we know we don't have the in-house talent, nor do we have the talent in Taiwan, so we managed to get the Skidmore, Owens & Merrill from San Francisco, Professor Coder, Dean of Architecture at Yale, and then Kenzo Tange, the famed Japanese architect, to collaborate together and design the Saigon South Master Plan. The plan is actually the very first Asia urban design plan to win the American Institute of Architects Urban Design Award of the Year. And in the middle of Asia crisis, we started to build. Initially, we actually focused on schools. We set up the first full U.S. curriculum international school in Vietnam since the Vietnam War. 2002. And sometime between this slide and the next slide, unfortunately, my father passed away in 2004. The second generation, my brother and I, and then also daughter of another partner of ours, the three of us really, together with the rest of the team, carried on. And this is '06. This is '08. This is about a year and a half ago. And on the flip side, we also started, in addition to residential, to education, commercial. So this is, if you go to the 7th district of Ho Chi Minh City, that's what you see today. And on the other side, this is the scene. There's a picture taken earlier this year. Our focus has always been, we follow a saying that's said by my father, it is not important what we take away from Vietnam, but it is important what we leave behind. So all our projects have a very, very long-term vision to try to think about what catalytic changes can we actually bring to the host country. How can we run a for-profit business, but at the same time, really have a high level of social impact? So that's what we do. And specifically, I think in infrastructure, in education, and in healthcare, you will see very tangible results. And these projects then become an inspiration for others, because instead of going to Singapore, some of the officials from nearby provinces or townships, they can bring their staff to visit the 7th district of Ho Chi Minh City. And they say, this is definitely doable in Vietnam because it is done. And then they will talk to the residents living in this compound, and they find out they're actually quite happy. And there are different aspects of urban design that we're also willing to share with them. So we hope that projects like these will have a transformational impact. I'll just run through a few more slides so you have a view. We also build roads, bridges, as our office building, and then we ultimately renamed it after my father. This is some of the residential components. We work with architects from all around the world. This is the latest effort, which is a $100 million shopping mall. We attract hospitals with the help of funding from IFC. So this is a group of French doctors that set up the Franco-Vietnam Hospital, and then a Vietnamese hospital focusing on cardiovascular diseases. Various governments has been very supportive. The Japanese consular school was the first to be anchored in our project site, and then the Koreans came and said, we want to be there too. We say, sure. Then Australians built a college there, and there's a Taiwanese school there as well. This is our own international school. So we're now we lost money for every year because we very much focus on the quality of education, but we finally, in the last 3 years, started to turn around in terms of cash flow. 800 kids, we now have kids going from this school to Brown, Penn, and Berkeley. This is a trade center that we built, and this is the Master Plan Award. But more importantly, we do a significant amount of charitable activities in Vietnam. We have this walk that we started to try to inspire other young Vietnamese to contribute back to their society. First year, 5,000 people joined. Second year, 8,000, then 10,000, then 12,000, then 15,000. So around 12 to 15,000 people every year will walk with us right before the Lunar New Year to raise a little bit of money and then to give back to the society. There are other slides that many other things in terms of the charitable fronts we do. We now run probably the largest non-charitable foundation in Vietnam, one of the largest. And so that's what I want to share with you. It's a quick journey, I realize, of 22 years of efforts in Vietnam. But I think that if you look at investments, especially infrastructure investment, you really need to keep in mind in terms of what a project can really do in an emerging economy. Aside from profit, there are other components that just with a little bit more thought and time input, you can really bring transformational changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Albert, for that fantastic presentation. Our third panelist is Ms. Wang Yuan from China Development Bank. And Ms. Wang has had a very distinguished career, and she's currently the Chief Economist and the Director of General of Education and Training Department of China Development Bank. From 1990 till present, Ms. Wang has been engaged in professional areas of economic policy and financial regulation and operation, and has rich experience in macroeconomic and financial policies, capital market development, and financial regulation and supervision. From 1990 to 2006, Ms. Wang worked as the economic officer at the World Bank, Director of International Department of the Central Bank of China, and China Policy Advisor in Hong Kong Securities and Futures Commission. And as we know, China Development Bank is the policy bank of China, and it's done tremendous work, both in terms of the actual development in China in various areas and also in the Chinese financial market. And also it's been heavily involved in investments outside China as well. So it's great for us to have Ms. Wang here to share with us her views on the current state of the economy in China and hopefully some insight about the future trends. Please join me to welcome Ms. Wang.
Thank you, Professor Wang. Thank you, Mr. Lan White, for inviting me to this conference. Because last year, I was also here, accompanying our chairman, and he gave this keynote speech. But I think this is a very good conference, especially organized by the students of Sloan School. This is, part of the demonstration of the future leadership in the business community, not only in the States, but also representing the whole world. I can see the different faces from the audience, very much encouraged. And I think it's very difficult to follow the other two panelists. They already demonstrated from their own angle. But of course, I'm from mainland China and working for the largest development financial institution in China. And when Albert was talking, and I found we have a lot of similarities in doing business, especially the business philosophy. And once you committed to the development of the region, and especially through financing the infrastructure, you do need long-term view, much longer-term view. But at the same time, you have to make sure the risk management, profitability, maybe not the highest profitable business you get involved, but you have to make it sustainable at least. So we are facing the similar challenges and problems, but I think we have achieved the similar achievement, both in the areas we have been investing. Today, because given the convenience, I just talked to the audience in London, and UBS has organized a conference. Every year they organize conference either in Europe or in other parts of the world, talk to the investors. There were 700 investors attended the conference. They asked me to talk about the Chinese economy because everybody seemed to be interested in the Chinese economy, no matter from which part of the world they are operating from. For that conference, we had two keynote speakers. One is Mr. Paul Walker, everybody knows him, and another is Chris Patton. But to my surprise, all questions addressed to these two distinguished guest speakers was about China. I was the third one. I started trembling, so difficult because now, of course, due to the globalization, and obvious China is part of the world. And also China, given the size of the economy, if you look at Asia especially, China is very big portion of Asia, given the rapid economic development in China. Obviously, investment opportunity should be there. But I'm not saying, once you invest in China, you don't need to worry about other problems. We do have a lot of problems because Chinese economy is still in transition. It's not full market economy, but already departed from highly centralized planning system. So on the daily basis, we also have to look at, economic reform issue, because this is not really fully matured economy. And you have to, I always advise investors, when you look at the Chinese economy, you have to look at 360 degrees. You have to look around. You look at the reform issue. You have to look at the development issue. Another issue you have to look at is the opening up process. Because obviously in the last 30 years, Chinese economy and economic and social development very much impacted by the opening up process and by the process of China joining WTO. And because when I worked, when Professor Wang introduced me, mentioned I worked for our central bank, and that was the time, I worked for central bank mainly representing Chinese financial service to negotiate WTO deal for financial service. It was very tough negotiation, obviously. I spent more time in Geneva than in Beijing because the negotiation was getting to deadlock with the United States, with European Commission. But obviously, China at the time was very much determined to join WTO because at the time, the leadership was Mr. Jiang Zemin and Zhu Rongji, our prime minister. They said, whatever we need to, overcome, China should be part of the world. Otherwise, there's no future, no bright future for China, and China will not contribute to the rest of the world as a major country or economic political power in the world.